So huge news out of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran hit 3 ships coming through. America has retaliated a significant number of strikes that just happened. So Anna's got more details.
Yes, in fact, news broke right before we went on air, indicating that the US is now carrying out some pretty heavy strikes against Iran in retaliation for Iran's strikes, alleged strikes on 3 different vessels that were traveling through the Strait of Hormuz, albeit through a path that was not greenlit by the Iranians, who, whether you like it or not, have control of the Strait of Hormuz. Those are the spoils of war, the spoils of the war that we Americans and the Israelis lost. I know it's a hard thing to accept, but that's just the fact of the matter, and there's no military option to change that. So the bombing that's taking place right now is useless. But let me give you the details. I'll start with how we got to the point we're at right now. So Iran allegedly struck 3 vessels that were traveling through an unapproved route through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, this morning, US officials confirmed that Iran had fired on 3 commercial vessels sailing in Oman's territorial waters near the strait. So I want to show you this map and kind of give you a sense of what I'm talking about when I'm discussing the different routes that these vessels are transiting through. So if you look at this graph, you'll see what I'm talking about. So one route is established by Iran, which has control of the Strait of Hormuz. And they have said for the 60 days this MOU is in place, these vessels can travel through our approved route without a toll, without any charge. That this is the agreement. Now, then there were 2. Then the second one was established by Oman and the UN's International Maritime Organization, or IMO. And 3, the pre-war route that some vessels have been attempting to travel through despite serious security risks. And those serious security risks are usually carried out by the Iranians, who have made clear that they control the Strait of Hormuz. Now, Iran intends to eventually charge, they're not calling it a toll, they might call it an environmental fee or whatever for vessels traveling through the strait. But again, just to repeat myself, after agreeing to the MOU, both the United States and Iran agreed that there would be a 60-day period in which Iran would waive all charges for vessels traveling through the strait. But I also want to be clear about one other thing. The Oman route that I was talking about earlier was apparently established for the Arab Gulf states and the US, which refused to ever pay any toll for any vessel traveling through the Strait of Hormuz. We'll see how that's going to play out, but Iran obviously doesn't like that, doesn't accept that. And so on Sunday, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps warned that its Navy deployed patrol boats to block the Omani route. But the US is adding to this confusion and to the conflict because the Joint Maritime Information Center, a multinational body overseen by the United States Navy, told shippers on Monday that the route around Oman has been expanded and remains available for all traffic. It appears that wasn't the case given the attacks that were carried out by Iran. Now, according to the United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations Center, one of the vessels caught fire. Iranian state television said that one of the vessels that was hit was a Qatari liquefied gas tanker. And then it also came under attack after ignoring warnings, according to Iran, and did not take those warnings seriously. And then following the strike, the Qatari Foreign Ministry demanded that the IRGC immediately cease all securities threats in regard to international maritime navigation. Additionally, 2 other tankers were also hit, including one that was struck by a drone. Both of those ships sustained some damage, but no one was injured. At least one of the vessels continued on their way. And then per CNN, the attack occurred hours before the US president, Donald Trump, of course, showed up to Ankara, Turkey for the NATO summit. And NATO leaders are in fact expected to discuss what they're gonna do about this whole Hormuz Strait situation. Good luck with that. Now, Trump also warned Iran that it would need to make a deal or we're going to finish the job. Iran responded by saying no more negotiations will take place if these threats continue. And that's where they were at prior to the US retaliating against Iran for striking these 3 vessels, allegedly. Iran hasn't taken responsibility for all 3. It seems like they have taken responsibility for the Qatari vessel. But nonetheless, the US is under the impression that Iran carried out these strikes, so they're retaliating by carrying out some of the heaviest strikes we've seen the US carry out since the beginning of the war. They have struck Qeshm Island, Bandar Abbas as well, which has a port. So we'll see where this all goes, but it's not looking good, Cenk.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of mysteries here. Iran said some strange things about the bombings, like, hey, no one's allowed to go through that route, but we're not sure what happened. Something along those lines. I was like, that's weird. And I don't understand why the Oman route exists and then Iran bombs them, ships going through there every once in a while. So I literally don't get that. Do you understand it?
I do not get the impression that Iran has greenlit that, because remember, the Omani path was created specifically to help the Gulf states and the United States skirt a possible, fee or toll that might be charged by Iran in the future.
I got you, but Iran, to my knowledge, allowed a lot of ships through that route. Okay.
Well, they do. This is what Iran does. So Iran just bears it, right? When it comes to all sorts of different elements of this war, they have said multiple times that any peace negotiation, and more importantly, the terms of the M.O.U. indicates that Israel needs to stop attacking Lebanon. But Israel has continued attacking Lebanon, just bombing entire villages, slaughtering a bunch of innocent people. Iran hasn't responded to that. So I feel like it gets to a point where Iran just can't take it anymore, and they want to prove that they mean what they say. And I think that's what happened here.
Yeah, it's possible. And plus, in the context of today, Anna gave you that other important data point, which was they're saying, no more negotiations until this is sorted out. That's not what a side with low leverage says. That's what a side with high leverage says, right?
Real quick, when's the last time you actually checked your Medicare plan? Can't remember? That's what I thought. But the costs creep up, the plans change every year, and they're counting on you not noticing. It's another rigged system. So please check with Chapter, the only Medicare advisors that compare every plan nationwide. They're independent, they're honest, they advocate for you, not the insurance companies. A listener of ours out in California was skeptical when he first dialed Chapter, but in just one call, they found him coverage he'd been missing for months, and he's not alone. People who switch to Chapter save more than $1,000 a year on average. And if you're already on the best plan, they'll just tell you. Free help in under 20 minutes, call 805-201-2275. Worst case, you'll be certain that you have the best coverage. Best case, you stop overpaying and get the coverage you need at the lowest possible price. That's 805-201-2275.
And they've been doing this funeral procession for the late Grand Ayatollah.
It's still taking place today.
Yes, and so they're about to go to the most holy sites now in the Shia world. And he was the leader of the Shia religious movement. So they're very hyped up from that funeral. So it's possible that the hardliners in Iran are gaining the upper hand. That's not impossible. But it does show you one thing that's clear, which is that Iran is not worried about further conflict. So Trump keeps saying they unilaterally surrendered and we won, and they have to give us everything we want. But there's a reason why we're talking about lifting sanctions, and we put the sanctions back on after this,
yes.
Right? But we had already lifted some of the sanctions. We had to put them back on, right? Mm-hmm. So that's part of this deal, giving the $300 billion from the Gulf countries basically to Iran as part of that deal. It's an enormous concession from the Gulf countries that they lost the war and Iran won the war.
Yeah, let me just decode it for you and make it very simple to understand, because it's actually not that complicated. The United States lied in signing this M.O.U. They have always intended to renege on the terms of the M.O.U. How do I know that? Because our vice president said it. And if you don't believe me, pay very close attention to what he had to say when he was on Michael Knowles' show just days ago. Take a look.
So I think what the president has told us to do is use this MOU to sort of refill the world's oil economy. Yeah. To refill some stocks and then to see where the hand is.
Yeah, we just lied. We agreed to terms that we don't actually agree to just to get the oil flowing, just to alleviate the pressure on the global economy. And then we'll go back to bombing, which, by the way, accomplishes nothing, literally nothing.
Yeah, so I usually look at what the Israelis are saying to figure out what the American government is going to do next. In this case, it's a little bit more muddled than it is usually. So Netanyahu has been asked about it a number of times in interviews here in American television. And his answer has basically been like, well, there's a lot of things in the M.O.U. and we'll see if it comes to fruition or not. So he acknowledges some friction between him and Trump, but we don't know if it's fake or not, right? And
there's no friction.
And so one potential telling sign is, for a minute where it looked like the disagreement was real, that's when Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro and all those guys flipped out and their hair was on fire and they're like, wait a minute, go back into the goddamn war, right? And they've really cooled down. They're barely saying anything about that. In fact, Mark Levin is on to Turkey and talking about how we need to attack Turkey. So that makes me think the Israelis aren't that worried and they definitely want more war. So then when I see that JD Vance clip, which I hadn't seen, Anna caught that one, and he says, well, we're just restocking on oil and presumably defensive missiles. That might explain why Iran is going, oh, so you guys are just reloading and this thing is fake. And Israel's not only not out of Lebanon, as the M.O.U. says, Israel's going further into Lebanon. And they continue to bomb Gaza, the West, they kill people in the West Bank, bombing Lebanon. And so, okay, so if this peace deal is fake for you guys to reload, then we'll hit some ships. Maybe, so that's a potential explanation.
Yeah, and I do want to show you some footage that's already come in with the US strikes. So take a look at this, I'll explain, keep my mic up and I'll explain what you're looking at. So this footage shows the moment US missiles struck Shahid Haghani port in Bandar Abbas. This is in southern Iran. And it is worth noting that the funeral procession is still taking place. There's a ceremony still taking place in regard to the Grand Ayatollah's funeral. And so these are, again, some of the strongest strikes the US has carried out against Iran since the beginning of the war, or at least since the M.O.U. was signed.
Yeah, look, I continue to say that if we actually do leave, we actually do get a peace deal, because at the end of the day, we're gonna have one or we're not gonna have one, right?
We're not gonna have one.
And if we have one, then that means we're not 100% controlled by Israel. We were controlled a lot. We were driven into this war 2 different times when we had absolutely no national interest in it. But if we go back into the war, then it's over. We're 100% controlled by Israel. I know no one in media will acknowledge that.
I'm losing my mind, literally losing my mind. I'm losing my mind. Like, why is this still a question for you? Like, why do you need more to happen to prove to you? Like, we are bankrolling the entirety of this war. We've lost 13 of our soldiers in this war. Oh, we're gonna wait for like another thing to happen to prove definitively that Israel has they have their talons in the skulls of every US politician.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's funny because I'm kind of.
You're so calm about it too. Like,
no, you've seen me be very uncalm about it.
That's true. I want you to stay calm. Okay.
So, look, you think Israel controls us 100%. Everyone in media says 0%, which is hilarious. Come on, guys, you're embarrassing yourselves, right? And there's a lot of good people who are like, well, maybe 30 or 50, they have some influence, a lot of influence, but I can't say control because I've been told that that's a trope and it will make, then I'll be canceled from life if I say that. So here, we don't care about any of the conventional wisdom, et cetera. So to me, I have an open mind. So I base it on the facts. So until we paused the war, it looked to be 100%, and I told you 100%. Then we paused the war, and it might be that it's a trick, as Anna's saying. So when we paused the war, I said, well, I'll bring it down and get open to the possibility that it's 80 or 90%, but not 100.
I'm not saying it's a trick. Our vice president said it's a trick. So like, I don't get it. So do we just not believe them? Do we not believe JD Vance when he says openly, overtly, like, yeah, we signed the M.O.U. to get the oil flowing, alleviate some of this pressure on the global economy?
Yeah, no, but you could say that and still theoretically mean like, yeah, get the oil flowing and then we'll get to the peace deal, right? So, but the part that actually drew my attention more was when he's talked about restocking.
Yeah.
See, because if you're restocking your defensive missiles, that means you're not on the way to peace and you're on the way to more war, you just needed more ammo, right? And that this has been a trick all along. And yes, Israel does control us 100%, and we are gonna go back into the war for them. And by the way, if that happens, that'll be the third time we attacked Iran on behalf of another country. And in this third time, not only do we not have any national interest like we did in the first two times, like we didn't in the first two times, but on top of that, this time around, we know that our national interests and our economy will be gravely hurt, and we would walk the plank for Israel again, then that makes it completely indisputable. Still, of course, everyone in media and everyone in politics will lie to you. Why? Because they're part of that control.
We're about to merge our militaries and we're pretending like they don't have control over us.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.